Last time, Maya Sinclair had built herself ready for everything she could see. The two concealed entities, the altered document, the unjust enrichment claim built on research Daniel had taken without her knowledge, the personal account with $3 million that had been hidden from her for the entirety of their marriage. Vanessa Holt sitting across from her in Sandra's office, placing documents on the table one by one, saying, "I kept everything." Maya had built herself ready for all of it. And then at 6:12 in the morning, a federal agent called her phone and told her that the man who had decided she was not the type to do anything about it had been on the radar of a financial crimes investigation for 14 months, that the connection to Curtis Webb, the Cayman Islands intermediary, was not new information to them, that what Maya's disclosure had provided was the domestic paper trail they had been building toward from the other direction, that Daniel Sinclair's carefully constructed world was not just unraveling in a family court filing. It was unraveling at a federal level. And Maya Sinclair, the woman nobody had seen, the woman nobody had worried about, the woman who had spent 8 years building something extraordinary in the silence that other people created around her, was not a subject of that investigation. She was a material witness. And they needed her cooperation. She had said, "When can we meet?" The answer was, before 9 o'clock. Before we go into that room with Maya, take a second and hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like and let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Because part 6 is the one I have been waiting to share with you. This is the episode where everything Maya has built finally comes fully into the light. And I want you here for it. Agent Marcus Webb was not what Maya had assembled in her mind during the 20 minutes between the phone call and his arrival at her apartment. She had expected someone older, more severe, the particular institutional gravity of a person who has spent a career in rooms where the stakes are always high and warmth is always a liability. Marcus Webb was 41. He had the kind of face that had learned over years of doing difficult work to be genuinely neutral, not cold, not warm, just present and precise. He arrived with a colleague, a woman named Agent Diana Reyes, who carried a laptop and a recorder and said almost nothing during the meeting, but whose eyes, Maya noticed, moved across the room the way Maya's own eyes moved, taking inventory, filing everything. They sat at Maya's kitchen table, the same table where she had eaten breakfast alone on the mornings Daniel left early, the same table where she had opened her laptop in the quiet hours and worked on the portfolio that nobody knew about. Now it held federal documents. "I want to be direct with you," Marcus said, "because I think you are someone who prefers directness." "I am," Maya said. "Curtis Webb has been operating a private banking structure in the Cayman Islands that we believe has facilitated the movement of funds for at least 11 individuals and entities over the past 6 years. The investigation began as a currency reporting violation, a technical but serious federal offense, and expanded significantly as we pulled the thread. Daniel Sinclair appeared in our records 14 months ago, when a wire transfer from an account connected to DRS Capital was flagged by the International Monitoring System." Maya nodded slowly. "The same month he registered Meridian." Marcus looked at her with a brief, contained expression of appreciation. "Yes, the timing is consistent. What we did not have until your attorney made contact was the domestic side of the structure. The original transfer mechanism, the altered document, the full paper trail of how the money moved from your marital estate into DRS Capital and then outward to the Cayman-connected accounts. That piece was invisible to us because it originated inside a marriage, inside a trust document, inside a series of transactions that looked, from the outside, like standard household financial management. It was designed to look that way," Maya said. "We know that now, thanks to your documentation." Agent Reyes looked up from her laptop briefly, made a note, looked back down. "What do you need from me?" Maya asked. What the federal investigation needed from Maya was specific and finite, a formal sworn statement confirming the timeline of events as she had experienced them, the document she had signed, the circumstances under which it was presented to her, the alert that had shown her Daniel accessing her accounts the night before Sandra filed, confirmation that the Vanessa Holt documents were obtained voluntarily and legitimately, and access, through proper legal channels, to the forensic records that Priya and James had compiled. None of it was complicated. All of it was something Maya had already documented with the kind of precision that, Marcus said, was genuinely unusual for a witness in a civil proceeding at this stage. "Your records are exceptionally organized," he said, and it was not a compliment exactly, more an observation that contained respect. "I've been organized about this for a long time," Maya said. He looked at her for a moment. "How long?" Maya thought about it honestly. About the filing cabinet, the password-protected spreadsheets, the external hard drive purchased with cash, the attorney interviews before she chose Sandra, the furnished apartment secured 2 months before she thought she would need it. "Longer than I knew I was being organized about it," she said. Marcus nodded, as if that answer made complete sense to him, as if he had seen, in the course of his career, enough people who had survived difficult situations to recognize the specific kind of preparation that comes not from paranoia, but from wisdom, from having watched and learned and understood at a level below conscious thought what it means to be someone who cannot afford to be caught unprepared. They finished at 8:37. Maya had 23 minutes before the 9 o'clock meeting. She called Sandra. "He's going to walk into that room not knowing the federal piece is active," Sandra said. "Yes. His attorney may know. Depending on what Daniel has disclosed to his own counsel, Morris may have been managing this awareness for some time. Or he may be in the same position as Daniel, knowing there is a problem without knowing the full shape of it. Does it change what we do? No. We walk in with the same counter-proposal we prepared. We present the Vanessa documents. We present James's full valuation. And we let Daniel and Morris understand, in the course of that meeting, that the landscape has changed in ways they are not fully positioned for." Sandra paused. "Maya, I want to prepare you for something." "Go ahead." "When a man like Daniel, someone who has been in control of every narrative around him for years, who has operated with the confidence of someone who believed he was untouchable, when a man like that sits across a table and genuinely understands, for the first time, the position he is in, the response is not always predictable. Some men fold immediately. Some men get angry. Some men make one final attempt to bargain their way back to solid ground using whatever they think they still have. What do you think Daniel will do?" A pause. "I think Daniel will try to make it about you. I think when the money piece is no longer arguable, he will try to shift the conversation to character, to the accounts you kept private, to the trust he believed he had. I think he will try to make your preparation look like deception." Maya was quiet for a moment. "Let him," she said. The conference room at Morris Sloane's firm was on the 14th floor of a building that had the particular architecture of established power. High ceilings, heavy furniture, art on the walls that had been chosen to communicate seriousness and permanence. The kind of room designed to make the people who sit in it feel the weight of institutional authority pressing down on everything that happens there. Maya had spent 30 years in rooms that were designed, in one way or another, to make her feel small. She walked in and sat down and put her portfolio on the table, and felt nothing of the kind. Sandra sat beside her. James Whitfield sat on her other side. Across the table, Morris Sloane arranged his papers with the careful efficiency of a man who has been doing this for a long time and knows how to use the physical language of a room to communicate control. Beside him, Daniel sat in a charcoal suit that Maya recognized. She had picked it out for him 18 months ago for a client dinner she had organized, confirmed the restaurant for, arranged the agenda for, and then attended as the gracious background presence who kept everything running smoothly while Daniel took up all the air. He looked at her when she sat down. She looked back. And then she opened her portfolio and did not look at him again until she had reason to. Morris opened. "We appreciate the meeting. Our client remains committed to a fair and efficient resolution, and we believe the proposal we submitted represents a genuine effort toward—" "We've reviewed the proposal," Sandra said. "We're not here to discuss it. We're here to present our counter and to ensure that your client has full visibility into the evidentiary picture before making any decisions about how he wants to proceed." A brief silence. Morris looked at Sandra, then at the folder she placed on the table. "The counter proposal you received last week stands as written," Sandra continued. "Full disgorgement of DRS Capital and Meridian Asset Group. Unjust enrichment calculation on the 3 mirrored investment positions. based on James Whitfield's current valuation, which I have included in the materials before you, the family home, and a written acknowledgement in the settlement agreement that the document presented to my client 14 months ago was materially altered after her signature was obtained. She paused. In addition to those terms, we are now including a fourth element. In light of newly obtained documentation regarding a third financial account held in Daniel Sinclair's name at a private bank, an account with a current balance of approximately $3 million that was not disclosed in his initial financial affidavit, we are requesting full disclosure and inclusion of all assets across all accounts and entities, domestic and international, in the settlement valuation. The room was very still. Morris looked at the folder, then at Daniel. Daniel was looking at Sandra with the expression of a man who has just felt the ground shift beneath him and is trying, very quickly, to calculate how much of it has moved. Morris asked for a brief recess. The two attorneys stepped out. Maya and Daniel were left alone in the conference room for the first time since she had told him to go home in her mother's kitchen. He looked at her across the wide table. The art on the walls, the high ceilings, the permanent, institutional weight of a room designed to make people feel small. "How long?" he said. His voice was quiet, not aggressive, something closer to a man who is trying to understand a thing he genuinely cannot fully comprehend. "How long what? How long have you been building toward this?" Maya considered the question honestly, the way she had considered it when Marcus Webb asked her a version of the same thing at 6:30 in the morning. "I started building my portfolio when I was 22, she said. "I started building toward this specifically, toward being ready for the day I understood what you actually were, probably about 2 years ago. Though I think some part of me started the moment I realized that the life you offered me was one where I was expected to disappear into the background and be grateful for it." Daniel looked at the table. "I didn't think of it that way." "I know you didn't. That's the part that took me the longest to understand. You didn't think of it as diminishing me. You simply didn't think of me at all. Not really. Not as someone with a full interior life, with ambition, with a strategy, with years of work happening in the same house you lived in, at the same desk you walked past every day." He was quiet. "She is not the type to do anything about it," Maya said. He looked up. "Vanessa told me what you said. All of it." Maya's voice was even. Not cruel, not wounded, just precise. "I want you to know that I don't say this with anger, but I want you to hear it clearly. The thing you identified as evidence that I was safe to underestimate, my patience, my quiet, the way I never made it obvious what I was thinking, those were never weaknesses. They were the conditions under which I built everything. You gave me the silence. I used it." Daniel stared at her. And for a moment, just a moment, something moved across his face that was not calculation, not strategy, not the performance of a man trying to manage a situation. Something that looked, underneath all of it, like genuine recognition. Like a man seeing, for the first and last time, exactly who he had been living beside. Before we continue, I have to stop here. Because that moment across the table is the moment this entire story has been building toward. Not the documents, not the federal investigation, not the $6.8 million. This moment. Maya sitting across from the man who said she was not the type, and telling him calmly, without anger, exactly how wrong he was. If you have ever wanted to say something like that to someone who underestimated you, tell me in the comments. Tell me what you would say, because this community shows up for each other, and I want to hear it. Morris and Sandra returned. The recess had lasted 11 minutes. Morris sat down with the particular posture of a man who has spent 11 minutes receiving information from his client that has changed the parameters of his strategy. "Our client would like to understand the scope of the newly identified account," Morris said carefully. "The scope is complete," Sandra replied. "Full disclosure, full inclusion. And the written acknowledgement regarding the document. Non-negotiable." Morris looked at his notes. Then he looked at Sandra with the expression of one professional communicating to another, across the table, that they have arrived at a place where a certain kind of honesty is more efficient than continued positioning. There are aspects of our client's situation that extend beyond the civil proceeding, he said carefully. We are aware, Sandra said. A beat. Morris absorbed that. How aware? Fully. The room was very quiet. Daniel was looking at the table. Morris was looking at Sandra. James was looking at his documents. Agent Reyes, who was not in the room, but whose work was present in every document on the table, would have appreciated the silence. Morris made a note. He looked at his client. Daniel did not look back. We'll need until end of business Friday, Morris said. You have until Thursday, Sandra replied, after which we proceed to the hearing and the full evidentiary record becomes public. Morris nodded once, gathered his papers. The meeting was over. They walked out of the building into the late morning air. Sandra, James, and Maya stood briefly on the sidewalk in the particular way of people who have just come out of something significant and need a moment before returning to the ordinary motion of the world around them. James spoke first. That went about as well as it possibly could have. Sandra allowed herself a small, contained expression that was as close to satisfaction as Maya had seen from her. Thursday, Sandra said. He'll come in before Thursday. Maya looked up at the building they had just exited. 14 floors of high ceilings and heavy furniture and art chosen to communicate permanence. A room designed to make people feel the weight of power pressing down on everything. She had walked out feeling lighter than she had in years. Daniel called his mother that afternoon. Maya didn't know this in real time. She found out later, from a source she hadn't expected. But while Maya was sitting with Claire Osei going through updated portfolio numbers and beginning, tentatively, carefully, with the particular joy of someone who has been waiting a very long time to do something, to talk about what came next, Daniel was on the phone with his mother explaining a version of events that left out most of the things that mattered. His mother, a woman named Patricia, who had always liked Maya in the careful, conditional way of a woman who approves of her son's wife as long as the wife knows her place, listened. And then she said something that Daniel had not expected. Daniel, what did you do to that girl? Not, what is she doing to you? Not, how do we fix this? Not the reflexive maternal protection he had counted on. What did you do to that girl? He didn't have an answer. For the first time in a very long time, Daniel Sinclair did not have an answer. Claire had run the numbers 3 times because the first 2 times she wanted to make sure she wasn't reading the growth projections incorrectly. She wasn't. 2 of the early-stage equity stakes that Maya had identified years ago, companies she had researched quietly, believed in before almost anyone else in her circle had heard their names, and held through the patience that was her particular genius, had received significant funding announcements in the past 30 days. The kind of announcements that moved valuations in ways that rewrote portfolio summaries overnight. Maya, Claire said, with the professional restraint of someone delivering news that she is personally thrilled about, the current portfolio valuation as of today's close is $9.3 million. Maya looked at the number on the screen. $9.3 million. Built over 8 years. Quietly, carefully, in the silence that other people had created around her. In the margins of a life that had tried, consistently, to be only someone else's story. The 2 positions that moved, Maya said. Which ones? Claire told her. Maya nodded slowly. She had believed in both of those companies at a moment when the data was not yet conclusive. When the belief required not just analysis, but judgment. The kind of judgment that comes from years of pattern recognition and the willingness to trust your own reading of a situation, even when no one around you would have validated it. Nobody had validated it. Nobody had even known about it. She had been right anyway. Wednesday came and went. Maya spent it with Priya Anand reviewing the final forensic report, with Sandra going through the Thursday deadline parameters, and with her mother at Gloria's kitchen table eating the soup Gloria made when she wanted to take care of someone without making a production of it. Gloria didn't ask a lot of questions about the legal details. She asked how Maya was sleeping. She asked if Maya was eating. She asked once quietly over the second bowl of soup. When this is over, what do you want? Not what you're owed, not what you're going to get. What do you want? Maya thought about it for a long time. I want to stop being invisible, she said. Not to make a scene, Not to be loud about it, just, I want to do the work I've been doing, and I want to do it with my name on it. I want to walk into rooms as myself, not as someone's wife, not as the background, just as Maya. Gloria looked at her daughter across the kitchen table of the house where she had raised her. You have always been Maya, she said. The rooms just hadn't caught up yet. Thursday morning, 8:47. Sandra called. They're coming in at 10. Maya was at her apartment desk, portfolio open on one screen. The document titled Next Open on another. The one she had started the night she found Daniel's message thread. The one that had grown in the months since, from a list of legal steps into something that looked increasingly like a plan for a life. A real one. Entirely her own. All terms? Maya asked. All terms. Full disgorgement of DRS Capital and Meridian. The unjust enrichment calculation, the house, the written acknowledgement of document fraud. Sandra paused. And Maya, Morris informed me this morning that Daniel will be cooperating with the federal investigation. Voluntarily. His team negotiated that position overnight. He's providing full disclosure on the Curtis Webb transactions in exchange for consideration on the criminal exposure. Maya absorbed that. He's cooperating. Yes. Which means the federal piece moves forward independently of us, and our settlement is clean. Your protection as a material witness holds. You are completely clear. Maya looked out the window of her apartment, the city moving at its usual pace below, full of people who had never heard her name and had no idea what had been happening in the quiet of her carefully organized life. Sandra. Yes. Thank you. For everything you've done, since the first day I walked into your office. A pause. Sandra, who was precise and measured and compassionate only in the space between sentences, allowed the space between these sentences to be a little wider than usual. It has been, she said, genuinely the most impressive case preparation I have seen in 19 years. And I want you to know that when you are ready, whatever you build next, I would like to be part of it. Maya smiled. For the first time in a long time, it had nothing to do with managing a room. The signing happened at 10:43 that morning. Maya was not there for it. Sandra had offered and Maya had thought about it. And then she had decided that she did not need to be in the room when Daniel Sinclair signed the documents that acknowledged what he had done. She did not need to watch it. She did not need the visual of his pen on the page. She already had everything she needed. She was at Claire's office when Sandra called to confirm. It's done. 2 words. Maya sat with them for a moment. Done. 30 years old. $9.3 million in a portfolio built entirely by her own hand. The family home. A written acknowledgement of document fraud that would exist in the legal record permanently. A clean separation from a marriage that had tried, for 4 years, to make her invisible. And a federal cooperation agreement that meant Daniel Sinclair's carefully constructed financial world was no longer his to manage. Done. Claire was watching her from across the desk with the expression of a woman who is very good at her job and is also, underneath that, genuinely happy for the person sitting across from her. So, Claire said, what's next? Maya opened her mouth to answer, and then her phone rang. Not Sandra, not her mother, not Priya or James or anyone connected to the case that had just, as of 10:43 that morning, been resolved. A number she recognized immediately. One she had not spoken to in 3 years. One that belonged to a woman named Dr. Anita Rao, a venture capital partner at one of the most respected early-stage investment firms in the country, who had met Maya briefly at a conference 5 years ago, before the marriage, before the portfolio had reached its current scale, when Maya had been young and new and had asked Anita a question in the QA session after a panel that had made Anita stop and look at her with genuine attention. They had exchanged cards. They had spoken twice by phone in the years that followed. And then Maya had gone quiet, not because the connection wasn't valuable, but because she had not been ready, because the timing hadn't been right, because she had still been in the middle of something she needed to finish first. She stared at the name on her screen. Anita Rao. She looked at Claire. Claire looked at the phone, then back at Maya, with an expression that said, "Answer it." Maya answered. Anita. Maya. The voice was warm and precise and carried the particular energy of someone who operates at a very high level and knows exactly why they are calling. I have been watching Sinclair Private Holdings from a distance for about 2 years. I didn't know it was you until 3 days ago, and I've been trying to decide whether to call ever since. A pause. I'm calling. Maya was very still. I'm listening, she said. I want to talk about what you've built, and I want to talk about what you're going to build next. Because what I've seen in your portfolio, the judgment, the timing, the specific companies you identified before anyone else was paying attention, Maya, I have been doing this for 22 years, and what you've built is not the work of someone who should be operating quietly in the background. Maya looked out Claire's office window at the city below. No, she said, it's not. Can we meet? And Maya Sinclair, 30 years old, $9.3 million, a settlement signed at 10:43 that morning, a case closed, a life waiting, said the word that was the beginning of everything she had actually been building toward. Yes. That is the end of part 6 of They Thought She Was Just a Housewife, until her fortune was revealed. And I want you to feel exactly where we are right now. Maya Sinclair walked into a marriage at 26 and spent 4 years being the background of someone else's story. She packed the lunches and managed the calendar and smiled at the right moments in rooms full of people who never thought to ask what was behind the smile. And today, at 30 years old, she sat in her attorney's office while her settlement was signed. She received a call from one of the most respected venture capital partners in the country. And she said yes to the beginning of everything she had actually been working toward. The woman they thought was just a housewife is about to show them what she's been building. Tell me in the comments how you are feeling right now. Tell me what you think Maya says to Anita Rao in that meeting. Tell me what you think she builds next. I read every single comment, and I want to hear from you. Because we have been on this journey together, and the finale deserves all of us showing up fully. Like this video. Subscribe to Underestimated Saga so the finale comes straight to you. Share this series with someone who needs Maya today. Because part 7, the final chapter, is the one where the woman nobody saw finally steps fully, completely, and permanently into the light. And that is everything.